Guys, before we hop into today's episode of the podcast, I want to tell you about a company I'm partnering with called David Protein. If you're a runner or someone who just wants to stay active, obviously the training you do matters, but to maximize that training, you have to maximize your recovery. And studies show that 30 to 50% of people don't get enough adequate protein in their daily lives. With David Protein bars, you get 28 grams of protein per bar with the added benefit of 0 grams of sugar, 0 gluten, and only 150 calories per bar. David Protein is my go-to because it tastes like dessert, but I'm also getting closer to my protein goal for the day. For me, I've been lifting a lot more recently, so protein is massively important, and David Protein has been my go-to. Give it a try. If you're not fully satisfied with it, shoot me a DM. I will fully refund your order. I've left a link in the show notes. Up your protein, up your recovery, and watch your running flourish as a result. Let's get into today's episode.
Outside of like medaling at a world championships or an Olympics, like the only other thing that like has been in the back of my mind forever since I started running was winning an NCAA title.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's back. You know him, you love him. Mr. Ethan Strand returns to the podcast today ahead of his NCAA Indoor Championships campaign this upcoming weekend. And since I last had Ethan on the podcast after his cross-country season, he's been on an absolute tear, setting 2 collegiate records, one in the indoor mile, running 3:48.32 in Boston on February 1st, and a second that happened before that where he ran 7:30.15 in the 3K, which was a remarkable performance. He's also won an ACC title in the 5K, running 13:26.60, where he closed that race in remarkable fashion, made it look way too easy. Ethan shares insights from each of these races, as well as insights from his career as a whole, why he feels like he's been so successful as of late, how things have fallen into place, clicked into place, what you can learn from his success, and his mindset going into this upcoming year's NCAA Indoor Championships. I hope you guys enjoy this one as much as I did. I love my conversations with Ethan and the ability to pick apart his brain and what he's thinking. He's a once-in-a-generational athlete, and I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did having it. If you do, share it with friends, share it with everyone you know. Help us out. This podcast is free. It's the easiest way you can support us. Hit the 5-star review and make sure you are following the podcast and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts so that you never miss another episode. Without further ado, enjoy this conversation with perhaps one of the greatest generational talents, Mr. Ethan Strand. Mr. Ethan Strand, perhaps they could say 2025 is the year of Ethan Strand. Welcome back to the podcast. How you doing, man?
Thank you. I'm doing well. I'm enjoying spring break. That's for sure. I needed this week.
You were so ballsy on the podcast last time. You made a bet with Parker. Take the people through what that bet was. You ultimately won it and the outcome. Parker's not with us today, so I want to hear it from the man who won the bet.
Yeah, well, Parker has this beard going on. It's a half beard. He's working on it, but I said if I beat him in the 3K or cross nats, he had to shave it. I didn't get him at cross nats, but I got him in the 3K. So beard went away for a little bit.
How quickly did he shave it after the fact, and how much chirping after the race?
No, I think he did it over when he went home, so which is probably good. He didn't want to be around, everybody else when he had his beard gone. He thinks he looks like a 15-year-old when it's not there. So
obviously that race. So love that podcast. I would highly recommend people go back and listen to that conversation that I did with you and Parker. But we talked between NCAA cross and then that like opener BU 3K. You ultimately ran 7:30.13. Which is the NCAA record in the 3K. A few years ago, would you have been surprised? Let's just start here. Would you have been surprised that you'd be the NCAA record holder in the 3K?
Yeah, no, I didn't think an NCAA record was in the cards for me at all. I thought a national championship was in the cards for me, but NCAA records, I didn't think so. Because I've always been someone who thinks I pride myself on my racing skills, not necessarily on my time trialing skills. So to actually go out there and run that fast was a little surprising, but hey, we did it.
To that point of being surprised with Parker in that conversation, I think I had you guys guess each other's times, and I think I could be wrong, but I think it was like 7:33 range. One of you maybe said 7:34. I've talked to Milt about this. Like everyone seemed a little shocked by 7:30, including yourself. Take me through that mindset and how much of that day in that race felt like a dream.
Yeah, I mean, like we said that on here because obviously you don't want to go too crazy. You don't want to throw something that's too out there. But like in our heads, we probably thought we could run a little bit faster than 7:34. I don't know about 7:30. We were thinking probably 7:32 range, but no, I mean it was just a kind of a perfect setup. The race was, but then also like that whole 3 weeks, 4 weeks leading into the race, we got beat at ACCs, and then Trent like took that and had a really, really good day at nationals. And yeah, and then a Thanksgiving break, got some time off just to rest and recover after Nats. And it was honestly like that whole build up to that race was perfect. And then the setup that day was perfect. Pacer went 2K. Josh Hoey made it 2K, like right on pace. And then Yassine picked it up right as he stepped off, and we needed that to run that time. So it was good. I mean, literally perfect.
Something that I'm really curious about, and I feel like I've spoken to a lot of people with, I think specifically high schoolers, but I think it's across all facets of the sport. They think with cross country, like you're not that fast and you're just strong and like you can't run fast off of cross training.
Yeah.
I think you and Parker certainly proved that to not be the case. Can you dive a little bit into like the buildup in the training and how you were very prepared for it, but you were also you were unconventionally prepared for it?
Absolutely. I think that race, it was very painful very early, but I was able to sustain the pace I was running for a longer period of time. I was more prepared to go the whole race running that pace. You just had to deal with some discomfort early because you weren't prepared for that shock. I mean, I think we were through 1,000, right? Like I think I was 232, which is really fast. So I think it was kind of just bearing down through the middle portion of the race. And then at the end, I was strong enough that I had it. But I've gained confidence from doing stuff I'm not great at. And so cross country is something I've struggled with in the past. And after that season, I had a great season. I ran really good cross country. I had so much confidence coming out of doing something that I in the past haven't been good at, became pretty good at it, to now like, oh, well, I'm about to go do something I have been good at. I'm ready to roll. So it's just kind of like the belief that, yeah, I can go run 7:33. And then also how strong we were has just all led into what happened.
How many track workouts would you say you did leading into that race?
2.
Really?
Like 2 workouts on the track. Because I only worked out twice after NCAA cross. I did something that Friday. We didn't work out early that week after the race. We worked out Friday. I think I did some threshold stuff in the morning and came back in the afternoon and did like some 250s right at 30-second pace. No faster. Just I think I did 8 to 10 of them just right at 30-second pace. Come through 230. And then the next week we did some threshold in the morning, came back and we did 4x600 at starting right above 60-second pace and got below. I think we were in 125 on the last one. So like 2 workouts of actual getting some race pace cadence down, but yeah, nothing too much, and yeah, not much on the track. Just strength stuff on our gravel loop and out at the ATT.
Did that worry you at all going into the race? And were you more nervous than usual, or no, because there was just like less pressure on this race?
No, I'd say definitely not, because like I did do some strides early in the week after, like after the race. I think on Tuesday I did some spike strides, and on our indoor track I ran like 26 point, and I wasn't really pushing. And I'm like, well, it's there. Like that's what I need to know is like I need to get one little it's there, and then now I know, and I don't need to press and sprint for a week straight to get ready to run the 3K. I had the confidence that I was ready to go, and just a little hits at that race pace just showed me that I wasn't worried. I was super confident.
Obviously, races and accomplishments like this are meaningful, but I would imagine that they're all the more meaningful when you do it with a teammate. So Parker Wolfe in this instance, can you speak to that? Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people here have seen the pictures after the race and the push race hug embrace. What was that moment like, and how cool is it to be able to experience your accomplishments with someone who's more than a teammate at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I got like when I got back and looked at my phone, like that's what the texts I got were. It was like that's the coolest thing I've ever seen 2 teammates do. Like a lot of people were texting me that. So yeah, it's special doing it yourself, but it's also special doing it with somebody that you see how hard they work every day. You're training side by side every day. So like we kind of understand like what we both put into it. So to to have both of us do it at the same time on the same day in the same race, it's super awesome. So yeah, I think it just like adds to the excitement because it also proves that what we do is working. So
fast forwarding to February 1st in Boston, you're on 348.32, which is the NCAA record. Take me through that race. How surprising was that to you? What was the plan going in, and how'd you execute on it?
that one was a bit more surprising because I didn't that's a lot faster than I had ever run. Like 7:30 is like digestible. 3:48 is not really digestible. So I thought I could run about 3:50 point. I didn't think I was going to break the Collegiate record that day, but also we hadn't done a ton of stuff that like showed me what I was capable of. And that's what we try to do is like let the races kind of like allow you to seek out what you're capable of and not do that in practice. But it was still like I hadn't done anything yet. So it was a mystery to me. It's like I don't know how fit I am. I don't know what I'm ready to do. But I knew those pros, Robert Farkin and Adam Fogg, were going to go up and try to run the world standard. I mean, they had no reason not to. And so it was pretty much for me, I was like, all right, well, hang on to that as long as possible. And then if you're there, try to win the race. And that's exactly what I did. And I didn't realize how fast we were running until like 400 to go. I looked at the clock and I was like, oh, we are really running. And then from then I was just like, all right, you're there. Let's try to go win it.
At what point did you realize you had a collegiate record in the bag?
With like 50 to go, I looked up at the clock again and I think I saw 340 coming around the bend. I'm like, what? Like am I about to run 347, 346 right now? The bend was a little longer than I anticipated, but yeah, I think with about like 50 to go, I realized exactly how fast I had run. And then it was just kind of like, I mean, when you see that that's about to happen, I knew nobody was behind me. So I was actually able to like pick my head up and enjoy it. Whereas like in the 3K with Parker, it was literally grit to the line. I got to beat this guy. So yeah, it was definitely a different experience coming down the finishing stretch and maybe a little bit more enjoyable in the moment. But I think the 3K was still a little bit more enjoyable after. So
yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Both these races, while obviously fast in records, there's definitely a tactical element to both of them. Mm-hmm. What do you feel like you learned through these races in terms of like, these weren't really glorified time trials. I mean, to an extent they were, but there was still a tactical nature and you wanted to win the races and you won both of the races. What do you feel like that says to you about what you can do in high level races with the biggest competition?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Parker's world class. He was third at the Olympic trials. So to go compete and, out lean somebody of that caliber proves one thing. And then to go into a race with some pros, already established pros, and do a similar thing, all it does is prove to me that I'm at that level and can compete with most people in the world right now. So I think it's like it gives me more confidence, and you can't go into races scared. You gotta take advantage of the situation, and those two situations were set up to run really fast, and I feel like I took advantage of them. But no, I think like the race with Parker kind of shows something because you are fighting to the line. It shows a different side of things than the mile. Like the 3K was obviously a great race. We ran really fast, but it wasn't like the perfect day. Like I wasn't strolling through the finish line with my hands up. I was fighting for every single second. Whereas in the mile, it was a little different. I think the mile, I definitely like had a better day on the day. As I think that's shown by, how I finished.
Your indoor mile attempts are basically, well, they are over at this point because kind of final race is NCAA Indoor Championships, which we'll get into in a moment, and you're racing the 3K there. But does that comfort you at all, or excite you, I think is the better word, where you kind of are talking about this 348 pretty chill of like maybe I had a second or two in there. It was a great day, but like maybe there's more in terms of like when you think to the 15, or I don't know, maybe if you get in like a pre-mile or something, just of like how fast you can go in that event.
Yeah, I think for the collegiates, I mean, there will be one race where I really go try to run a fast 15. It's similar to this indoor mile. It's like I gave it one shot, and I was probably going to run fast enough to qualify for Nats, but if I ran 352, I wasn't probably going to run it again. So I feel like the outdoor 1500 will be kind of like that as well. And I have the standard now, so I don't need to go. If I run 333, And that's not the standard. If I run 3:33.3 outdoor, that's not the standard. I probably won't run a fast 1500 again outside of the rounds at regionals, rounds at nationals, and then the rounds at world champion or US champs. So I'll probably run a race or two over the summer, I would assume. But like, I'm going to go get one fast time in to get qualified for regionals and then focus on actually competing and or training so then I can compete at the best level later in the summer. So yeah, I think it's good to get at least one like really hard effort, kind of see where you're at. But I don't think it's necessary unless you're trying to get a nationals qualifying or unless you're trying to get a regionals qualifying. If you're at that point, it's necessary to, run a 1500 every weekend and see how fast you can go.
For sure, getting ahead of myself here, and sorry, Milton, in advance for making Ethan not be where his feet are. But first collegiate under 330, I'm sure you've thought about it. Where's your mind at in regards to that? And even if it comes way down the line at a national championships or a national championships as in USA's or a world championships if you qualify.
If the US championships is run anything like the trials where this summer, there's going to be people that run under 330. And I think there's a big chance that there are two or three collegians that go under 330 in that race. It's Nathan Green's going to do it. Gary's going to do it. I think I can do it. Like, there are people who are well capable of doing that. And I think this season's kind of shown that. It's like Nathan ran 350 in early or mid-January. So it's like once outdoor hits, people are going to run really fast. And yeah, obviously, like, I think it'll kind of depend on like who places higher in that race, where that'll be considered the first sub 330 collegiate.
I think over the past years, we've been building up to 2025 and the class of guys that it's their final season. And I think it's not, I don't know, too much to say that this is probably the greatest era we've ever seen of the men's NCAA 1500. And there's going to be some smoke and some fire this outdoor season. How excited are you, one, to be a part of that, but two, to be leading the charge? And I don't know, just like, I love when the sport of running, there's like competition and like, sure, times matter. And I'm sure people will be looking for you to see if you can break 330 or Nathan to break 330. But at the end of the day, y'all are probably going to run some different meets leading into the national championship and run different times. And then like that 3 minutes and 30-ish seconds at the NCAA meet might be the most exciting we've ever seen, just because it's going to be like the highest caliber field of all time. How excited are you about the momentum over the next few months and what that's going to create going into Eugene?
Yeah, I think the more that I'm trying to figure this out and like think about it, and these times don't really matter. They do matter, but they really don't. And we have a lot of guys in the NCAA right now that really like to compete and try to win races. And I think that is one reason why the NCAA is taking such a step up. Is like our bar isn't each other right now. Our bar is the people at the top of the sport. So like, I'm not like, yes, I'm trying to beat Nathan Green, but also like, I want to compete against Cole and Yared as well. So it's like, for the NCAA season, I kind of see that as like, yes, I'm all in trying to win a national championship, but also how is this, it will prep me for the US championships. So I try to, have that as my end goal and have what the NCAA season kind of as part of the process. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like some of the best racing in the world right now is what you see at NCAA outdoor and what you see at NCAA indoor. So yeah, it's going to be super exciting.
To that point of times maybe not mattering as much, you might say we're at that point, if that's the case, state it. But at what point do you think we'll get to the point where times don't really matter? Because I've been thinking about this with the mile at the high school, collegiate, and professional level this indoor season. Like, it's getting to the point where it is getting a little out of hand, and probably in 5 years, some collegiate's going to run 345, and we're just going to be like, I don't like, if records are being broken every 2 months, to what extent is a record even meaningful and valuable? And at that point, I think track will probably become more about competing and competition and like who's winning. From my perspective too, I think that could be a positive in terms of getting outside exposure, where it's like a little easier to follow along, where if I turn on the TV for my family, they can't really conceptualize, they don't really know what like a 348 mile is, But if I'm like just watch and see who wins and like this is all about who wins, it's like very easy to follow along. So what's your kind of thought on times and also just like the state of track and field and where we're headed in terms of like competition versus like a time trial?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think times will ever go anywhere. Like, I think they'll always be a good metric, and a way to measure, I guess, like how good people are and like how many people are good. Um, I think it'll always be there, but I think it depends on the athletes. If the athletes have a big shift and focus on competition, trying to win the race, then I think that'll be the main focus. Whereas like, world records are really cool, but like someone's probably going to get that at some point. It's like my two records might be gone in next year. Like there's a very high probability that like I will not be a collegiate record holder in a year from now. I mean, I was almost not a collegiate record holder a week after I ran that mile. So it's crazy. And I think that's like, it's really cool in the moment. You have to sit there and like, and someone breaks a world record, yeah, they deserve the praise. That's really cool. But like when you do win something, it is with you forever. So, and it's the same thing with like the shoes. It's like at what point are super shoes, people dub them, at what point are they now the normal shoes? Because it's been like they've been out for like 8 or 9 years now, 8 years. It's like at some point they're not super shoes anymore. They're just what everybody has. So it's that. I feel like it's a similar argument.
That's super interesting. Good point there. Recapping another race, you ran your first ever indoor 5K. I would say it went pretty well. Ran 13:26, closed really hard, won an ACC title. Take me through that race.
Yeah, it's similar to what we tried to get out of cross country leading into the 3K. Do something that I'm not as good at. I'm typically not as competitive at, and see how it goes and try to practice that long buildup over the last mile. And yeah, I mean, I ran really well. I ran it smart and I closed really well. And so you come off of something, okay, I've never won a 5K before in college. Now I just won one. It's like, okay, something I wasn't as good at in the past, I'm now getting a lot better at. And that just gives me confidence coming into NCAAs. If I had run the mile again, like, yeah, and won ACCs in the mile, like that's good. It would give me confidence, but I wanted to practice something that I hadn't been necessarily as good at in the past. So yeah, the 5K was awesome. I loved it.
I think a lot of people are wondering going into this NCAA Indoor Championships, they probably saw the declarations or whatever they might be called. You're in the DMR 3K. What was the decision to drop the mile here? NCAA record holder. Not well, I guess you are in the 3K too, so I can't really say that, but you're not in maybe the main event that people would consider you in.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to run the 3K, like at an NCAA championships, and I think I would have made the meet last year, but I didn't get a chance to run the 3K. I had a little injury, like right as the season started, like early January. So just with how things played out, and when I got back, I didn't have the chance to run a fast 3K, so I didn't make the meet, and so I went mile. The year before, I scratched the mile only to run the DMR. So I've always loved the DMR and wanted to be. It's more fun when I'm sitting on the line with four of my teammates or watching my teammates run, and they're running for me to try to get me to stick as high up as possible. And I think when you have a team effort, it's a lot more fun and enjoyable. And then also, I've always wanted to run the 3K, and I think that's one of my better events. And so yeah, I'm just super excited about those two events, and I wanted to run what I was super excited about. So if I wasn't like itching to get on the line and run the mile, that's why I scratched it, because like I'm itching to get on the line and run the DMR and try to win a team relay championship, and then I'm itching to get on the line and run the 3K. So those are the two events I was really excited about, and I was like, let's do it.
Also, Gary Martin drops the mile. So you and Gary, he almost broke the collegiate record, as you mentioned, the week after you ran it. Is Andy Powell paying off you guys to continue the UW indoor streak?
Yeah, I'd say Nathan's probably the favorite. So we'll see if anybody can take him down in the UW streak. But no, I think Gary probably thought the same thing. It's like they have a really good DMR team, definitely a chance to win that. And he's the fifth fastest all time in the 3K. So like in his mind, he has a chance to win the 3. So I assume it was probably a similar situation to my decisions. But yeah, I mean, we'll get 2 races this weekend, so we'll be on the line next to each other as well.
I mentioned kind of that competitive competition aspect with the 15 this outdoor season. I think you could use the same argument for this year's DMR at the Indoor Championships, probably the most stacked DMR we've ever seen. So much firepower. And I think what your class and the people in this race are going to go on to do, we might look back 5 years from now and be like, how are all those people in the same race? What's your mindset going into this DMR? And can you just speak to the DMR as an event and how exciting it is because of how unpredictable it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all kicks off with leg one. I think if leg one does their job, like not to put any pressure on Parker, but if leg one does their job and gets the hands the stick off in a good position, like the whole relay set. Like it's almost like when one person does their job, the rest just follow in line. So that first leg kind of kicks off the momentum, and I don't think there's a better person on the opening leg than Parker. I mean, I think he's going to do his job, and he's really good at racing. So, but yeah, I mean, you look at these races and how stacked they are, and even outside of us in Virginia, there's so many other teams that are going to be there. It's super exciting.
I was going to ask you something about the DMR. Oh, okay. So obviously for those that don't know, it goes 1,200, 400, 800, and then mile or like the likes, 1,600. Yeah. So I'm always been curious about this. What's the relationship? And I'm sure it varies team to team, but what's the relationship between generally the 12, 8 and mile are all going to be distance guys? What's the relationship between those 3 guys? And then you throw a random 4 guy who probably like is so in sprint culture and like such a sprinter. What's that like?
I think it's really cool. I honestly think that sprinter, at least on our team, that comes up and gets to hang out with like the distance guys for a little bit. It's I'm sure it's completely different, like watching like how we operate, and how much we like. We're pre-meeting and we're going out to run 5 miles the day before the meeting. He's probably sitting there going, "What in the world? Why are they running 5 miles today? Like that's ridiculous." No, I think it's exciting, and it brings the team atmosphere back into track at a meet like this when we only have like 5 or 6 guys going. So yeah, I mean, I think it brings the team atmosphere back in there, and I always tend to compete better when I feel like I'm doing it for my teammates as well. So yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit of a shock, but we're always excited to bring the 400 guy along with us.
How does that work from like a strategy coaching perspective? Is it like Milt and then the sprint coach, just Milt, and like how do you guys figure out strategy amongst the different events?
Yeah, for like when we go up and qualify for a DMR, it's typically just Milt that comes up there, but like obviously they get the whole rundown from the sprints coach. A meet like this, I imagine the sprints coach will come as well. But yeah, I mean, Milt's kind of like, I mean, I feel like for a 400 leg, it's in the DMR specifically. It's all right. Can you get a clean run? Can he have open space? So I think the strategy revolves around what the 1200 leg does. Honestly, for the 4 guys, like, all right, either get it out, you're in the lead, and he has a clean run, or maybe give the guy a second so our 400 guy doesn't run up on him. So I don't know. I feel like the strategy definitely goes a lot into the 1200 leg, because with the 4 and the 8, you just want as clean of runs as possible.
Baton practice, how much of that goes down, or not much at all?
0, none.
Really?
No baton practice. We can handle it. I mean, we're not doing blind handoff, so just like make sure your eyes are on the baton. You're not going to drop it.
You better not drop the baton, because if you do, it's about to get clipped so hard this weekend.
I won't drop it. I won't drop it. Don't worry.
Did you ever do 4x4s back in high school? And if so, any fun stories?
My senior year, I did a few 4x4s. I loved the 4x4. Like that was my favorite event in high school. Like we finish a long meet. I've run the mile, 2 mile, and it's like, all right, you want to run the 4x4? I'm like, yes, please. Like a lot of people shy away from doing that 4x4. I loved it. So
we've talking about records a bunch in this conversation, and you mentioned like records, only last so long. You might not have yours in less than a year from now. What stays forever is championships and NCAA titles. I'm sure you've thought about that. How much would it mean to you to bring one home, whether DMR or 3K, ideally both?
Yeah, I mean, it would be really cool. I think it's just like outside of like medaling at a world championships or an Olympics, like the only other thing that like has been in the back of my mind forever since I started running was winning an NCAA title. So, I mean, that just like it's part of the process and it checks something off my list and it's something that I really, really want to do. And I feel like I'm in a situation right now where I'm set up for it and I'm ready to do it. So, yeah, we're gonna go out there, run really hard, and give it a shot. So, but no, I'm super excited. And I think we've got a good chance.
You've always been really good at the sport of running. Obviously, if you run for the University of North Carolina, you're a stud to be recruited and to run there. And you were very good in high school back in your Alabama days, as we've chronicled in previous conversations. Mm-hmm. Don't even know how many times I've had you on the podcast. So one of those conversations, I'm sure we talked about it, probably the first one. Losing my train of thought here. Bama. Oh, I was going to ask you this. So you've like always been good at the sport of running, but I feel like the last year, like things really clicked. And I think like nationals, as in USA nationals, I think people got a little bit of a glimpse of like what you're capable of. And I think since that moment, you've just been riding the confidence and the wave and like things really clicked. What would you attribute that last year of like consistent, successful progression to and things clicking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the training's just been building on itself over the last 3-4 years. Also, I kind of got tired of getting my ass kicked. Which, if you look back at NCAA championships, I feel like I was better than my performances showed. I think a lot of that went into, I guess, how passive I was in those championships. I think the first glimpse for me, just looking at it, was last year in indoor in the mile. I was the opposite of passive. I was super aggressive. I was up in the front. I was trying to pass the leader 3-4 times over the last 400 meters, and I got my best finish out of it. And then you go to outdoor, and I was super passive in the final. I closed really well, but I was just back. I was just too far back. Like I think Joe Wascom closed in 149.3 to win, and he was right where I was with 800 to go. I think I was 150.5, and I got ninth. So it's like the margins come into like how aggressive and where you are positioning wise. And I was just passive, and I would sit myself in the back and hope something happened. So I think recently I've just taken it upon myself to like, all right, you only get so many chances. Let's make the most out of them. And I think that mindset shift has allowed me to, actually get the most out of my fitness and, my physical capabilities.
What would you say to someone listening today who wants to be successful like you, whether that's breaking NCAA records or literally just like being successful at their state level in high school? What do you think it takes to be successful?
Bottom line, like, it does come down to a little bit of ability, like whether you are actually capable of doing something. But even like if you would have asked me in high school if I was going to, be competing for NCAA titles, I would have told you yes, even before I had any results that back that up. And you'd be like, all right, this is like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what have you done to show that? But I believed that I was going to do that. So I think it comes down to belief. Honestly, if you believe you can do something and you put in the work to back it up, like, you're giving yourself the best possible chance to do that. And it still may not happen, but if you don't believe you can do it, it's definitely never going to happen. So I think it comes down to that, honestly.
To that piece, how important do you think that kind of like delusional belief is in yourself? And as you mentioned, like believing things before you really have the evidence to truly believe them.
Yeah. I think it's the same thing as like, I guess maybe I showed a glimpse of it a little bit this indoor season that, I'm going to be able to go compete with the best in the world, but it's like some people still may be like, well, no, you're not even close. Like they're on a different level. And it's like, all right, well, I kind of have that delusional belief that I'm going to, and I probably will because of that. I know I'm physically capable of doing it. It's just a matter of like actually doing it. And I think I can, I think I will. So, whether that happens or not, if it doesn't happen, then yeah, it's delusional, but I'd rather give it a shot than just not even think I could do it at all.
Ethan, final question for you. The bet, last podcast with Parker, Nationals 3K. This time, have you made a bet? Has he made a bet? Is there any conversation? And is Milt sick of bets at this point?
We still have a few days left. I think the bet honestly should go in my direction this time. The last time I had no repercussions for losing the bet. I think we should probably do something the other way around where he's got to bet against me. I got to do something and there's no repercussions against him. So we'll see. I might bring that up today and see if he's got anything for me, but no, nothing at the moment.
If Parker listens to this, like not putting ideas in his head, but like in your mind, what could that be? Because you don't have a beard, you probably don't want to go bald. Like,
I don't want to go bald again. I did that. All of our sophomores are bald right now, and I'm like, I did my time. I shaved my head my sophomore year before indoor nationals, and it was rough. My hair, I just look like a tennis ball when it starts growing back out, and it's not a good look. So I don't know. We'll see if he has anything in mind, but I have no idea what he would think.
Ethan, always appreciate our conversations and your openness to share the journey. It's been so fun to follow along and so cool to see your progression. Like, I don't even remember when I first had you on the podcast, but I think it was like, I remember my conversation with Milt and he was like, you got to get Ethan and Parker on. I was like, okay. I was like, they're pretty decent, but they're not like national class. And he knew what you guys were capable of. And it's been so cool to follow along, specifically as of late this past year and all the things that you've accomplished and all the ways the hard work has paid off. And can't wait to see you rip one this weekend or two this weekend and see the results. So keep crushing it and big things ahead for you, man.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was after NCAA championships my sophomore year, and I think why I always want to come on when you ask is like, I think you were the first person to kind of like give me a platform and show me some love. So yeah, it's been fun. So I'll keep coming on if you keep asking.
Much love.
Yep,
Go Tar Heels, baby.